This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the August 16th, 2021 special meeting of the North Haven Board of Education at 6:10 p.m. I'd like to apologize to those that are wanting to listen to us via Facebook. NHTV is having some technical difficulties, and they will be able to have the meeting, the recorded part of this meeting on by tomorrow morning. NHTV is also putting a note on their on the website so that people will know that. So again, our apologies. So our first item is our action item is on the consent agenda, which is the July 14th, 2021 Board of Ed meeting minutes. And we have, that's number one. Then we have the retirement of the following: James Johnson, a social worker at North Haven High School, and resignation of the following: Brittany Lewandowski, our math coach at Clintonville Elementary, and Kristen Kehoe, our language arts teacher at North Haven Middle School. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
May I just say that I worked with Jim Johnson in the middle school, and at that time he was very engaging and had a bicycle club. A lot of students stayed after school and worked on to refurbish bikes. And then he moved on to the high school, and I know he's done. I guess he's with us about 15 years, and he came from ACES, so he has very good background. So I congratulate him. We'll miss him. Welcome to the other side, Jim.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next on our agenda, another action item is the ratification of the support staff contract, and we all read that in our package. So may I have a motion to ratify the agreement between the North Haven Board of Ed and the United Public Service Employees Union dated July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2024.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Can I just jump in really quick? I just wanted to say that negotiations overall were very productive, and as a district, we're very grateful for the service of the paraprofessionals, the administrative assistants, and security guards within the district, and also just a big thank you to all of you for helping us through negotiations.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And next, we need to have approval of the North Haven Board of Education 21-22 meeting date, which was also in your package. We just have one correction. I'll say it now, then I'll say it when I do the motion. The October date should be October 14th, not October 7th. So may I have a motion to approve the North Haven Board of Education meeting dates for the 2021-2022 school year, with the correction that the October date will be October 14th.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
I just have a quick question on this, because the November meeting date is a Wednesday, and that's right.
Yeah.
Because Veterans Day
Veterans
falls
Day.
on Thursday, right? That's perfect. And then the April meeting date is the first Thursday in the month, and that's for
April break.
Perfect. All good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So our next thing I wanted to discuss was the North Haven Public Schools mascot and possibility of a new name. I've been going through, this is for discussion for us, it's just here, and what I've been thinking that I'd like to do, and is this. I want to include the town in any decisions that are made and our students that are going to be made. So my thought is that the Board of Ed put together a, lack of word, mascot committee, which would take place with 2 members of the Board of Ed, a person from the Tomahawk Club, the Booster Club. I also thought to have someone from the North Haven Youth Football League, because I believe the Youth Football League is one of the biggest youth organizations in our town, because it also encompasses the cheerleading. And what I would then like to do is have, as we come forward, have those people from the youth football speak to the other youth organizations about the plans and what we're doing and get some feedback. Dr. Delai, I would like to run it, and then we would have students from the high school. And my thought is we get this committee together, we go through some things, and as we always said, whatever name we have, whatever thing we do is going to honor the Native Americans from our area. I also want to have one of the Native American people who spoke to us throughout our whole process be on that committee. So then that committee come back and maybe come back with, say, 3 suggestions. And then we look at some of the art, we look at names and artwork, and then bring that out to the students, perhaps throughout the school, for whatever of the 3 names we may choose. We can have an art contest, across the school. It could start as young as elementary, going through high school to draw the new picture. So I'm just going to say, let's say we went with the Hawks, and then we're looking at the Eagles, and then we're looking at the Falcons. I'm just going to go right there. We could then have a art contest within our town for each student to put together, draw a picture, or get some ideas of that way. Because I want to encompass our students too. That's kind of where I was thinking. I wanted to keep the committee down to 10, to no more than 12 people. Of course, Steve Blumenthal would be on that too. I wanted to try and get your opinions on that.
In terms of a timeline, where are you looking?
I'd like to get the committee formed by September 15th and brought to us by November, December, with 3 names. And then when we come back from school, from vacation, we can start, or right before vacation, could be when we start the contest of the drawing and the naming. That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's all rough. It's all been in my mind. I've been thinking about it when I was away on vacation. I was just trying to find a way. So that would be it.
Okay.
Hi, Ellen.
Is that better?
Yes.
Would it go to the, to get approval from the Native American associations before or after kind of we narrow it down?
I think once we narrow it down.
Then it goes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I need to verify this. Someone had told me recently that any new name we choose needs to be run through the tribes here. I don't know if that's a law or just something that is being recommended based on what's going to be happening in the government and stuff later on.
There is legislation around it.
Yeah.
Expecting more detailed.
Okay, so for those who couldn't hear Mr. Sturp, there is legislation about that. So any name that we have that may be what we feel is honorific to Native Americans, we have to go to our tribes to get their approval, local tribes to get their approval. As we find out more about that, I'll keep you guys posted. But just want to get anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I do, if that's okay. The students that are selected, I realize that, Dr. Dalai is definitely closest to the students, especially at the high school. But I think that several students reached out proactively, gave public comment, or completed their own survey or something like that. I'd love to see some of the students who were involved in it.
Yeah, that was my thought too.
Okay, perfect. That's great.
Yeah, I had 2 of our, I think they're our junior class, right? Mm-hmm. Come here and give such a great presentation to Patrick, myself, Melinda, I don't know if you were here. And Joe about things. This was even before our vote came in. So yeah, I'd like to get them involved and other students who have been proactive in many ways. But that's kind of where I'd like to go.
I think the contest, like the art challenge, is a great idea. I love that, especially if we have the guardrails. So here are 3-ish animals that you can kind of make a logo for. And I think that also involving people in North Haven is a great idea too, because it's all of ours, right? And I'm wondering if our friends at NHTV could help us publicize some of the art finalists.
Sure.
Whether it's creating a program and maybe interviewing the artists, or if they want to make videos. Like the kids today, my 11-year-old can make a video like you wouldn't even believe. If they want to make videos and post them, I would think that might be a nice partnership, and some of the seniors in town who watch NHTV might appreciate that as well.
Okay. Also going back to the senior in town, I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine who is been in town since 1940 and was here when we had when the Indian name and original picture came out, and she would like to be on that committee too. And I think that's a great way of hoping to bridge the communication gap that may be happening in town.
That's great. Let me know if you need any help.
Well, anyone else? Okay.
I have one more thing, I'm sorry. And when they submit, whoever submits, what they think should be the mascot, will we have like criteria, like show us how is this related to the Native Americans that work? So we'll have bullet points that they have to kind of check
And that's
off.
what the committee will come to.
Okay.
That would be what the committee would do.
Okay.
So I won't be on that committee, but what I will do is the first time the committee is together, we'll go through some of those things.
And then this way we could have like a rubric and kind of check it off so it's all the same.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. But I'd like to really get this moving. I know there are still so many people that are unhappy about that decision. I just hope that this can bridge things back together. Anything else? Okay. Next is our policy that we received, which was the first review of the minority educator recruitment policy. That was an information item. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, thank you. So, the minority education recruitment policy is being presented to the board tonight for a first read. And the state has mandated that each school district develop and implement a written plan for minority educator recruitment, with the goal being to increase the number of educators of color in classrooms. But beyond these obligations, there are really no clear requirements in the law regarding what the policy should really look like. So in drafting this policy, I consulted with the district's diversity inclusion coach, as well as I read up on some of the other school district policies that are out there. We are currently in the process of creating a draft diversity statement, which once it's approved by the board, I think will align nicely with this policy. And I believe this policy will continue to grow and evolve over time to meet the needs of our district. So next meeting, I was thinking the policy would be up for a second read and discuss further, answer questions, as well as do any fine tuning to the policy. So that's where we stand with that.
Can I ask a question now on it?
Of course.
So I think I gave it a first read. I thought it looked really good. One thing though, in the private sector that we do is when we have goals like this, there's usually some kind of metric to measure against. And I don't want to get to the point where we're saying like we have to have X number of people or we have to hire anything to that extent. But I did look up our demographics by our student population, and the Latinx population is 10.2%, the Black population is 4.5%, and the Asian population is 7.5%. But when you look at the teachers, the Latinx is 1.2%, the Black is 0.9%, and the Asian is 1.5%. So I was thinking that maybe an unofficial goal could be to achieve parity with the way that the student population looks, as like an unofficial, like it's a target. There won't be any like repercussions for, like nobody's gonna withhold funds or anything like that, but it's the kind of thing where it's aspirational and it's saying, okay, so we have 4 Latinx teachers right now, and in order to achieve parity, when looking in proportion to the entire population, it looks like, we need to up that number pretty significantly.
Yeah, but can I just say something on this? Because this mandate coming from the state bothers me. An educator should be hired based on their qualifications.
Yeah.
Amen. And it does bother me. That's how an educator should be hired. And when someone applies for the position, we don't know their nationality, their race. So to me, you know, I'm just looking at it as when I look at it that way, somebody applies for the position via REAP, what they do. Unless they fill that out, which is all optional, we don't know that. And you know what, it's not you, Amanda, it's just me giving my personal opinion on that. You just hire the best person for the job.
I completely agree with you, but what I like about this policy is that it says, like, we're going to actively look to recruit from other sources than what we've looked at previously. And, you know, as a hiring manager, there are steps that you can take to kind of shield. You can shield names while you're reviewing applications, and that way you're definitely guaranteeing that there's no conscious or unconscious bias at all in the process. You know, I think the policy is really thoughtfully written, but I do think that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. The quality of the educators in North Haven is of the utmost importance to me, and I completely agree with you that we need the best and the brightest here. But I think we can find the best and the brightest that also are going to help us balance out our minority population.
The end game is hiring the best candidate for the position.
Right.
But one thing that it does need to work on is creating a more diverse pool. And in our hiring committees, understanding how to look for a diverse pool and making sure that we are interviewing with no bias whatsoever. I think we always go into it with that intention, but I think there's some training that's involved with that and some understanding around how to really have a very fair and neutral interviewing committee.
And just to add to it, even when you look outside the hiring process, the big first step is looking at places you haven't looked at, advertising in places, because that's how you get the pool. Because even if you advertise now, you'll get a pool, but it's not a diverse pool or qualified. So it's the first step is, okay, where are places we can advertise, you know, to get the same qualified, you know, people. Because at the end of the day, it's students in the classroom. Students like to you know, be taught by a diverse population of teachers in the classroom and experiences. So, but that's just my 2 cents.
I agree. And a few years back, Melinda and I applied for I think it's through ACES, correct? A grant, which I think it was about $1,500 to $1,800 to help support hiring people of color for the classroom. And you know, prior to COVID, we had hoped to put on some job fairs and reach out to different resources to increase that pool. COVID unfortunately stunted that a little bit, but we're back on track.
Okay, thank you. And I always like our discussions. Go into the different things. Okay, next we have staff communication. As we are going to be talking about the opening of schools and the COVID-19 update, that woman I know is I don't know if she was very interested, but she went out in the hall. I want to just bring her back for that. So we're going to go to the superintendent's report, and he is going to talk about the opening of schools and the COVID-19 updates.
All right, can I borrow you? Thank you. And just board members, as I go through, please feel free to jump in, interrupt, ask questions. I think it's easier to do that as opposed to at the end, because we're kind of hitting on a lot of different topics tonight.
Brian, are you videoing that?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Howard. And if you need a copy, there are copies right in front, so you don't have to turn around and look at the screen. That would be to do. So the district's goal for the 2021-2022 school year is to provide 100% in-person learning for all students. The state departments of health and state epidemiologists continue to state, and I'm on a superintendent call once a week with DPH as well as the Department of Education. They continue to state the best way to keep school open and in person is to get folks vaccinated. Go ahead, Howard, thank you. As always, whether or not we are impacted by COVID, the physical safety of the students and staff is our top priority. NHPS relies heavily and almost exclusively when it pertains to COVID around the guidance from the Connecticut Department of Health and our local health department, Quinnipiac Valley. We continue to provide engaging learning opportunities for students, and the focus will be to close the learning gaps that the pandemic has created, as well as reintegrate those students who have not been inside a school building for roughly 18 months now. And the social and emotional well-being of our students and staff continues to be at the forefront of what we do. At this time, all students and staff are required to wear face masks in each of our school buildings, at least through September 30th. This is a mandate based on the governor's executive order. It's executive order number 13A. And just a few hours before our meeting tonight, I put it in front of the board. It says Shipman at the top. We received a communication or memorandum from our legal counsel, Shipman and Goodwin. And it's a good 4 pages long. I'm not going to read the whole document, but it's titled Potential Consequences of Defying a Mask Mandate. I'm just going to read a couple blurbs from here just to give everyone an idea around if districts choose not to follow this mandate. It says that at present, wearing a facial mask covering or facial covering in school buildings is a legal requirement, not a recommendation that school board members and other school officials can choose whether to follow. School officials who ignore or even override this mandate have no legal defense, and they may face personal liability as a result. If a Board of Education chooses not to follow or even affirmatively votes to override this binding guidance regarding facial coverings in school, it exposes itself to liability claims by children and others who claim to have contracted COVID because masks were not required in school. So there's just a couple of blurbs that stood out to me as I read it before the meeting today. So as I said, masks must be worn in school by all staff and students, and they also must be worn on the buses, as this is a federal mandate that pertains to all public transportation. Students and staff will not be required to wear face masks while eating or learning outdoors or during recess. And similar to last year, mask breaks will be provided to all students throughout the school day. Thanks, Ellen. So the Department of Health continues to reference layered mitigation strategies as the best way to keep students safe and schools open. Masking is at the top of that list during every meeting that I take part of during each week. We continue to keep distance between desks and classrooms. However, this year will be a little bit different. It has decreased to 3 feet between desks. And we will not, at the elementary level, we'll not be going back to tables just yet. We'll continue to use desks. We believe that'll give the teachers a little more flexibility in seating. They can put them together, pull them apart, while keeping that 3 feet distance. That being said, there will be small group tables back in the elementary classrooms for that small group learning instruction. Last year, cohorting was a strategy that we utilized in the elementary and the middle school levels. This year, middle school students will not be cohorted in the same manner as last year. They'll be able to move from class to class and interact with students outside of their teams during the unified arts blocks. We will continue to keep 6 feet of distance when masks are off and students are eating. Keeping the distance will help keep students safe and limit the number of students who need to be quarantined when a positive individual is identified. The high school is actually increasing the number of lunch waves to 4 this year to lessen the students in each shift. And the middle school and elementary schools will be utilizing additional areas in the building, such as libraries or the auxiliary gym or auditorium, whatever they have, to keep that 6 feet of spacing and to ensure proper supervision while the students eat.
Will they still be utilizing the tents outside?
Yes, the middle school one is currently up, and Howard and I are actually talking to Dr. Dallai and how he'd like to utilize the one at the high school this year. He has a little bit more room this year since middle school has returned back to their building to eat, so he has a little more flexibility.
Can I?
After.
Yes.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead.
So they won't be eating in their classrooms?
Elementary?
Yes.
They may still end up eating. Their classrooms will be a mix of classrooms, cafeteria, possibly the library. It's how each building makeup is, and they'll have to plan it out per building.
After. And I knew you were going to ask that because that's what I was going to ask. That was one of the questions. Do you know what the day is going to look like as far as students being able to leave items? Like elementary school, they were taking everything back and forth in their backpacks all last year. Mm-hmm. Are they going to be able to leave items at school? Or are we not doing
so? I think they might be able to. However, with their one-to-one devices, it might behoove them to bring them home back and forth, simply because you don't know if there's going to be a positive case, if something comes through that night, and they're going to need their equipment to learn from home.
We're hoping to open up like lockers where they're available, or like student cubbies, so that they're not necessarily keeping all of their things on them all day long as they did.
So lockers are at the discretion of the buildings at this point, so they can choose to use them or not this year.
And I guess going a little bit like what Eleni was asking as far as lunch, do we know what recess is going to look like at the elementary level?
As normal as possible.
Okay.
So what,
So there'll be multiple classes and grades outside, and the students who can have friends in other classes will still be able to see them in?
they will, yes.
Okay.
And they'll be able to utilize the equipment. There won't necessarily be a schedule like there was last year.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sorry. Back to the putting their stuff in the cubbies, like there, I know in some of the classrooms, because the kids had coats and sweatshirts and especially at the elementary level, like I know my son can't keep his stuff together. So they will be able to hang them in the cubbies, kind of in the back of the classroom so people aren't tripping over everything and sound poor.
That's the plan.
And in the middle school, they'll be able to use their lockers to leave the stuff.
I believe that they will be. Lori was either looking at certain times to access as opposed to, in between each class or whatnot, just have them maybe use at different times so they're not all in the hallway at once. They're planning it.
Okay, and teachers will be able to freely like grab their stuff, look at it, go through folders, give it back, everything?
Yes.
Okay.
So I just have one question. Will these kids be able to get mask breaks? And my concern is we're going back to school, and what if we have a heat wave and the elementary schools are not air conditioned? What is our plan B for that?
So as always, an abbreviated day is always on the table if need be. There are parts of the building where it is air conditioned. It'll be a little bit easier to have students access those buildings now that we don't need to keep the 6 feet, we can keep 3 feet. And something else I wanted to say, I can't remember what it was.
Breaks.
And fans, good question.
I asked about fans.
Fans will be back in the classrooms. The way DPH describes it is you have to weigh out the risk versus reward. If it's hot, then we need to put the fans on to keep. If kids getting overheated and staff getting overheated is more pressing than COVID, then we need to make sure we take care of them in that manner.
May I ask about the elementary school, because,
Dad, can you raise voice a little bit?
yeah. The middle school tent, or what was in back of the middle school, is a very heavy-duty, really nice tent. Is there tents at the elementary levels?
There are not tents at the elementary levels. I think Green Acres may have purchased one that they use. It's relatively small, but the PTA purchased that one. There are awnings at the elementary schools that students can access and go out underneath. They're still getting outside. They don't need to access. The tents were really designed hopefully for lunch and for extracurricular activities at the middle school and high school that they have more of there. So at the elementary, they can still get outside, but they don't need it for lunch per se. And we're pretty sure we don't need them for lunch at either the middle or high school anymore either.
Oh, okay. It's just that I know if I'm correct, that last year a lot of the elementary students who were taking their lunch outside were sitting on the ground. Well, then that attracts ants and whatever. And, I was wondering if you could possibly rent tents just for September, October.
I think, in talking to Howard, I think tents have been tapped out, and a lot of we bought the tents that we had early last year. So those are actually our tents. We haven't rented them, so we can continue to play out and see how things look during the school year. And the students have their sit-ons as well. I know it's not a table, but at least they're not sitting on the ground.
It's just, I taught in all those elementary buildings, and I know how uncomfortable they are in September and even in October. And if you had a place that was shaded where you could set up table, just like the middle school, the kids could be outside in different groups learning at tables under a tent. And it's not ideal, but
It's better than being in the sun.
better than being in the tea hallway and throw.
Anything's better than that.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Sorry. So for mask breaks and the amount of times they go outside, again, more for the elementary, I guess, than middle school and high school, but it's up to each building how that happens, or?
So they'll schedule them out. We talked to each of the principals and requested that they're at least out 3 times a day, 10 to 15 minutes at a clip. Teachers tend to want to be outside, especially in the hot days, and even just to take a break and walk around the school.
Yeah.
And so they'll schedule those in to make sure they have them.
Okay,
We talked to them about the importance of that.
okay. Cool, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Howard. All right, so overall, let me make sure. So overall, the quarantine and the isolation protocols and guidelines have not changed. However, there are a few points to note for the opening of the school year. As I said, students can now be seated 3 feet apart from one another in the classroom. But when students are 3 feet apart or more from another student, properly masked and remain asymptomatic, they will not need to quarantine, regardless of their vaccination status. This practice, again, only applies student to student, and when they're in a classroom where they tend to be stationary, music, the regular classroom, art. When they're at PE, they're not stationary, so this PE would be the exception to this new rule.
This is all levels, elementary, middle, high school.
Very hard. So the definition of a close contact remains the same as last year, with the exception that I just mentioned of the student-to-student contact. The quarantine period for a close contact has been shortened to 7 days, with a negative test on the 5th, 6th, or 7th day. This is a change from last year, when we started with the 14-day and we reduced it to the 10-day quarantine. And the positive individuals will continue to isolate for 10 days following the onset of symptoms or a positive test. This has not changed from last year.
And those kids can still log on remotely during that time?
So we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still working that out. Yep. That is the question of the hour. So Jen K, our district's COVID-19 health and safety liaison, created this flow chart to assist everyone in understanding the quarantine process. It's shared with the board right now. It's at your spots, and it will be shared with the community in the coming days. Thank you. So for remote instruction, synchronous remote instruction will not be provided for this school year. And voluntary remote learning is not a choice families can make during this 2021-2022 school year. The state has the expectation that all students return to in-person instruction, and as such, school districts are now permitted to use remote learning as a model on inclement weather days as well. So we're back in school for snow days. There's no more remote learning. That's not even an option anymore. As far as the type of remote learning, that's still something we're talking through with the teachers union. We haven't come up with a complete plan around that yet. We'll keep the board posted as we do. And we're still waiting for a little bit more guidance to come out from the state as well. So that still remains to be planned.
Patrick, what do you mean? Can you clarify what you mean by working with the teachers union about the remote learning?
So last year, during this time, we created a memorandum of understanding around expectations.
Yeah,
we don't think we'll need that this year. We just need to iron out some expectations with them. And that's coming in the next very soon. Yes, Lynn.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So let's say someone falls within this flow chart. And they were within 6 feet of the person for more than 15 minutes, right? And then they do end up, then they test at day 5. So that close contact would have to be home till they get a PCR test on day 5, 6, or 7. And as long as they're not symptomatic, then they can come back to school. So if there's no login from home sort of thing, will they be able, like a parent be able to go pick up their schoolwork?
They're just not missing school. There's going to be a much less. So last year we had a 10-day quarantine where it was a significant length of time. This year we're down.
3 of them. So.
This year we're down to the 7 days. You can test at the 5th, 6th, or 7th day, and there's going to be a weekend involved in there too. And most times when we find a positive case, it's not usually on day 1. It's usually on day maybe 2 or 3. So there's going to be a 2 or 3 day, hopefully, stopgap period in there, and that's what we're trying to figure out how we're going to instruct the students in case they're quarantined.
But there will be a plan for that.
Right, but if they are home, like a parent can go get their stuff.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not going to be like total.
We'll have to see you later, and then we'll see you in 2 days.
Right.
So.
I didn't think so, but just for the crowd.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that though? Parent involvement, parents going to schools, specifically the elementary schools. How are we keeping the same parameters in place as last year for parents visiting or coming in or eating lunch?
So
Volunteer.
I'd like to open the school year with the same parameters in place and see how it opens. One of the state epidemiologists I thought described it pretty well and very simply. He said, picture we're back in late May and this is open the school like we were back in school late May, and that's kind of how we handled things at the end of last year. I don't want that to day that way, but I would just like us to get our feet underneath us for a little bit. Parents obviously can come into the building, but eating lunch and things like that, let's just wait and see, because we are still trying to keep those 3 feet, see how much space we have in each of these locations for students to eat lunch. So let's get that settled first, and then we can take steps forward.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I also have a question about air conditioning in the elementary schools. Because if we are not permitted to utilize remote learning days for snow days, and we have a rough winter, we're potentially stretching our kids at the elementary level further into the summer months. So this is just my monthly request for air conditioning.
I wish we had received a little bit more in the ESSER. I mean, we had enough to provide air conditioning to 2 of the elementary schools. I didn't want to put anybody to make that decision. That's a tough one to make. And plus,
no winning.
plus, we want to make sure that the ESSER funds go directly to hit students and improve or at least close the learning gap that the pandemic has created. So it has never left our planning. And we've had the study and the assessment done a few years back when I think it was 2019 to see how much it would cost, and it's still out there. It's something to speak about. It could be a bonding project in the future, and something I speak to Mr. Frieder about as well. So, but we're also looking for in the next couple of years to plan a renovation on our elementary buildings too. So that should be in the mix.
Good to hear.
All right. Thanks, Howard. So the district will return to regular cleaning practices. This is advised by the State Department of Health. There'll no longer be the need for deep cleaning or continuous spot cleaning of high-touch areas. And the annual inspections of all the HVAC systems are currently being conducted. At the start of last year, we made sure that every system was brought to 100% operational at each of our schools, and this is just going to be maintained moving forward. Those inspections are currently happening, and Mr. Diana will be receiving reports around them to make sure they're fully operational. Just to finish up, as these slides we posted.
So Howard, when you went back, you said windows will remain open in the classroom. I didn't think we could keep windows open in the classroom due to active shooter.
We can keep the windows open in the classroom.
We can, okay.
Yep.
And there's someone to make sure that those windows are always closed at night?
Yes, the custodians do the final walkthrough before they leave, and a large majority of the teachers make sure that they're closed before they leave.
Thank you.
So a lot of checks and balances. Plus, we have our SRO officers who are constantly making laps around the building.
Yeah, I only asked because I know we had such a dialogue about it a few years back.
So these slides are going to be posted to the COVID Hub on the district site. We have a list of communication avenues that we communicate with families to access information. We just ask that all families review and update their Power School accounts to ensure they're receiving all the district and all the school communications. And just a final couple plugs, one for the M&J Bus Company. Please reach out to them if anyone's interested in driving for them. They're always looking for additional people. And for Kelly Services, if you're interested in becoming a substitute for the district, please contact them, or you can reach out to us at the district office and we can direct you from there. So, thank you.
From the communication, from the communication avenues perspective, I've heard a lot about student mental health, and I know that we have SEL curriculum that's in place currently, but I'm wondering, and I know that Jen, you've been doing a great job posting SEL stuff for parents to the Facebook page, but I'm wondering if we could potentially send out some additional help for the parents when it comes to mental health and awareness. That's something that I hear a lot about. Okay. Is that, they're feeling like their kids are struggling and they may not know where to start. So I think it would be great if we could just kind of point them in the right direction.
Very good.
So I planned on, I have some staff working on resources to give to parents to kind of help ease back into the school year. So we're working on that, and I don't know if I was gonna do it through PowerSwift or Facebook. And then I think it was last year I put out on Facebook who, like the social workers in school psych and counselors were at each building. That will be posted within the next week as well. So resources are coming.
Awesome, thank you.
No, you can go. Mine are more like, they're mundane questions.
Mine is too. Do M&J have all the bus drivers they need right now?
I don't believe that they do, but they didn't last year either. They're always down a few.
Well, and because there was a big report on ABC News, and this is a nationwide, and I was concerned about M&J.
And the quarantining aspect of it puts an additional burden on the bus companies as well.
I just had some regular questions that I know like a couple of parents were asking me and I was like, I don't know. So when do the bus schedules typically come out? Like right before school? Week before.
Yeah, maybe a little bit closer.
Okay. And then after school programs, are they gonna run as normal? They won't be virtual either? Like anything after school, like extracurriculars, like high school, middle school stuff?
They should be back in person.
Back in person.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for Power School, Power School. I always have to reset.
Hopefully your questions are limited around this.
Yeah, no, I always have to reset my password, but that's neither here nor there. But for new parents entering each school, I think like some people, like when I logged in, I was like, it seemed like there's just a lot of stuff to upload. So if someone has questions about that, who can they contact?
They can contact their school's main office.
Okay.
They can direct them from there.
Okay. Just didn't want to bog down somebody that shouldn't be bogged down with questions.
No, they're the admin assistants at the buildings are great facilitators.
Okay.
So and usually they have answers right off the bat too. So
Yeah. All right. That's all.
I have a few more things if that's
Yep.
okay. Oh, so a few weeks ago, this is really I don't really have a good transition to talk about lacrosse. So a few weeks ago, Howard and I met with the executive director, the director of Team Connecticut Lacrosse. His name is Eric Bailey, and he brought along Attorney Joe Porto to discuss a request from Team Connecticut Lacrosse. And the program would like to utilize our turf fields for the next few years at a discounted rate. Now, this isn't part of the board policy, so this is something I wanted to bring out to discuss with the board. The program's offer for 3 seasons to use the turf fields is $10,000. The normal cost for what they'd like to use would be $18,125. So their offer represents a 45% discount for the three seasons. And just a few things I wanted Howard, please jump in at any time, the board to consider. The program serves about 350 players, 10% are North Haven residents. They're working to establish a home base for their program, and they believe our facilities are very good and provide a centralized location for them. And they would, at our facility, have the opportunity to host what's called the Connecticut Cup, which could draw a good 4,000 or 5,000 people to our facility. So, yes.
Would they be utilizing the lights at night?
I believe that they would, yes.
And custodian for picking up. That's one thing, when people are using the synthetic field, are they is it contract, should our custodians under our union rules have to be on hand, or do they have private cleanup?
So that's a concern that we have. I know Mr. Diana had brought it to Howard and I's attention that in the past when CT Lacrosse does use our facilities, it's not always maintained to the standard that we would like to keep it. So we would probably ask that overtime be paid to our custodians to maintain that.
One of the other things too,
The fields.
sort of fields is they have to be like my understanding is they have to be swept or whatever. Fluffed or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's our custodians have to do that, that's my understanding. So that's additional cost that would be involved.
Because that's additional usage.
Usage of the field.
So
But it is generating revenue, right? So it's a give and take there.
But is it generating revenue? I want to just understand if we're like at a break-even point here, or if
So
I don't want to lose money.
right,
Yeah.
right. So you're not going to lose money, but again, we have the board policy that's for. There's 2 groups, right? There's the for-profit and groups from outside, and then the in-town groups. And so you have a policy set there. So now if you start to discount for these groups because they're going to use it multiple times, that becomes an exception to the policy. There's a policy in place for a reason. I don't know if it was this board that voted on it, but a board voted on it and approved that policy, and there's set prices. The prices, the cost of the custodians and the cost of the use of the field is not going to exceed $10,000 for that period of time. It just isn't. But the point is, it will create revenue for your field. I didn't do an entire analysis of cost, profit and loss on it, but I can guarantee you it's gonna create positive income for using those fields.
So I'd also like to just kind of better understand the total hours of usage, because the fields do need to be maintained more frequently based on the hours of usage. And the fields will need to be replaced sooner based on hours of usage as well. So I just want to make sure that we're in a position where the potential share of replacement costs is figured in somehow. The lights are another big outlier for me. The grooming and fluffing of the fields is another thing, and any and all replacement patches or additional rubber granules that need to be put in there. I just want to make sure that we have like a full accounting of what the costs are, because I think it's great that people like our fields and like our services. I think that's a huge compliment, right? But I don't want to end up in a position where we are paying to have we're taking resources away from our students in order to have adults utilize them. If we can manage to find a win-win, cool, that's fine. But I want to just make sure that we are not taking anything from the kids here.
And what I'll take from that is I will actually do a full profit and loss for you, so we have it, so it's all done.
Thanks, Howard.
So you can,
Did they make any mention about extra you said something about a tournament or Hostess Cup, Connecticut Cup? That would be outside the initial agreement, no?
We would like it to be. We didn't get that far, and it's the prospect of holding that. It's not something, like, I guess different fields can hold it different years, and they would like to potentially bring that here to North Haven to hold it. So it's the opportunity to do so.
yeah, one of the ideas they thought about that was because you're bringing all of those teams and all of the parents and everyone into the town, so now all of a sudden the businesses in town benefit from that, people going out to eat, going out, so that it's more of an economic benefit to the town as a whole than just focused on the field's usage, right? So it's a combination of both things.
Yeah, I would debate that myself.
I
don't think that's nearly as profitable as they're trying to make it.
I would like to know what the cost would be for like police officers because that's gonna be increased traffic, you know.
And that would fall on the club. That would not fall on us to do so.
Okay.
Why, if this was already answered, sorry, but why are they asking for that's a pretty big discount. You're saying usually it costs 18 something and they want to get it for 10. Why? Because they're going to be here 3 times versus 1 time?
Correct, because it's in a longer use of our facilities.
It's a guarantee. You're guaranteed 3 years contract, basically. You're guaranteed revenue for 3 years to utilize the fields is what their thought process is. So they want, because they're guaranteed to use our fields for 3 years.
Right.
They want a discount for doing that.
Are they expecting a negotiation?
That's what
Everything's always up to
Yeah.
That's all dependent on
Right, because right now, because the discount they're coming in with is hefty. So I didn't know if they were expecting that to go.
Can I ask another question? What if like an in-town club wanted to use the turf fields? They would have to pay, correct?
Is it not for profit?
It depends.
It
It
depends.
depends, right. We have the different groups.
Or
Yeah, like there's
So
even
those are
soccer
North
club.
Haven, those are North Haven based clubs, and so either they pay minimal or they don't pay at all. I'm not sure.
There's a very small,
Yeah.
it's a pittance compared to what, the difference is like for one field with lights is like $150 an hour for an out of town or for a profit.
Yeah.
I believe it's $30 it's $25, 15 for no lights, $25 for lights for an in-town club.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a significant difference between the two. There's 2 groups, it's group 2 and group 4.
Okay. And so let's say we were to do this, just saying, if we were to do this, and then based on when would they be coming in to have the tournament? Is it summer tournaments or is it spring ball? Is it fall ball?
I think there's 2 different times. I think there's a summer and a spring, or a spring and a fall, something along those lines.
It's spring.
They have the potential to
And they would
host.
schedule around our schools?
It wouldn't impact us whatsoever.
Exactly.
The weekend, probably.
The policy states that our schools get priority, our students in our schools get priority for use of the field before anyone else, even the in-town clubs.
Yeah.
So that's the way it works. That's part of policy.
Did they mention how often they want to use the field then?
They actually, I had to create a grid for all the hours that they wanted to use it, and if they wanted lights, if they didn't want lights. So it's most of the time, it's probably for like a 4-hour period from like in the evening. It's like, it generally goes from 5 to 9.
That means once a week, 5 times?
Oh, no, it was multiple times a week.
Multiple times a
Yeah, I mean, once a week at $10,000 is not bad. You know, 20 times a month and 10 grand is not so
So
great.
that's how we came up with the 18,000, we actually took all the rounds that they wanna use it.
At that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't our football team, our local team, use that, either the high school team, but also the youth leagues use that field?
So right now, we're talking with the youth, we're talking to them right now about utilizing the fields and it's another issue that they're talking about, they don't wanna pay because they haven't had to pay in the last 2 years because whatever, I don't know, I wasn't here for those, but I told them they had to pay for the fields and they got a little bent out of shape about that. They actually went to go.
So they didn't pay?
They haven't paid in the last 2 years.
The youth teams?
The youth football team, yeah. That's what I was told by the youth football director who's.
Well, last year they didn't play football, did they?
Right, and they didn't, and that was, but he said they haven't, this is the first time he's heard of this. Matter of fact, it's DeMayo.
Mr. DeMayo, Sal?
Sal DeMayo, he said he was on the committee that created those rules. And he said he never was aware that they were approved. And that's why he was not aware. that
Randy was on that committee.
So was I. So was I, yeah.
So, yeah, so.
And he was there and we talked about all of this.
Yeah, but he's saying he didn't think they were approved, so
Maybe he was
I have
absent.
no history with this, I
Okay.
have no knowledge.
And that's more just for maintenance, because you do have to maintain the field, or else, I mean, there's a whole risk that comes along with injury and all this stuff. Okay, I mean, I
Also
think
voids
it's
the warranty as well, we need to make sure that we keep up with that.
When did they get an answer? Because what I'd really like to do is get a little table, talk a little bit more amongst here. We need to get the situation resolved with Mr. DeMayo so that he understands what was agreed on by the committee and what's in our policy. And then just maybe get some of those numbers you had thought of getting to us, and we can either have another conversation about it. When were they looking to have us an idea?
They didn't really give us a timeline. I explained that I needed to bring it to the board for discussion. So.
Yeah, but I have to say right now, yes, it's nice to get $30,000 in 3 years, because it would help to go to the replacement costs, and I think we have like 7 more years for our field, although our field is in good shape. It might wear out sooner if we do that, and at $10,000, I don't think a year, or $30,000, that's not a lot going to the cost of, I believe it's $100,000 to replace or update the fields.
the Connecticut Cup is kind of like was like a big lacrosse thing, so I think it's nice, it's nice that they wanna come to North Haven, and it'd be really nice, like, for North Haven to be that central location for this lacrosse thing, but like Anita's saying, and like everybody else is saying, I think maybe the numbers a little in more detail, just so we make sure that we're not cutting our nose off.
Yeah, is it possible to
Otherwise,
find
it'd be
out
great to have
where they had it last and what they paid?
tournaments.
To find out where the last Connecticut Cup was held, how much it cost to utilize that facility.
I think the concept makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It'd be
but
great
it's
to have
just
it in North Haven.
Yeah, it'll be good, but it's just the details in terms of the cost and everything.
Yeah.
But I think the idea is great. I mean, the field is just gonna sit there over the next 3 years, so it makes a lot of sense that they're
No, and we need the revenue to replace the
it
field.
makes sense that they're coming in with that proposal, so.
But we wanna make sure that they're not just lowballing us and we don't know what they've paid before.
I mean, you would consider making a counter offer, right?
Yes, we agreed. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Reserve that.
Sorry, Howard, more detail.
He's excited to get
those
the numbers.
P&L out.
As long as it's numbers, he's excited about it.
Yep.
The next, sorry, I have a lot tonight. So I just want to provide the board with a uniform update and somewhat of a plan we have moving forward. So Steve Blumenthal, Howard, and myself spoke last week to discuss a plan for updating the athletic uniforms to remove either the word Indians or any caricature of the Indian on the uniform. So we felt the best plan of action is to actually purchase, do replace them all at once and not phase them out in any way. So this is an approximate cost of $25,000. And I shared with the board that we were looking at potentially using capital funds for this, but Howard and I kept hashing it out, and we have a number of projects going on through capital that Howard will hit on during his report, and we believe using the ESSER 3 and the ARP funding would probably be a better place to replace the uniforms. It's $25,000 out of the $2 million that we have, and we can get that one hit and replace them all for this upcoming season. So that is the plan. And I think for the fall, what we needed was for field hockey. I think that was the only one. Randy was very helpful around hockey because she explained that it takes a long time to get the sweaters made and they have to embroider a lot. So we have already worked with Mr. Blumenthal around that to get that purchase order out to make sure that they're ready for the opening of their season. So I just wanted to throw that out, and that's really our plan unless there's any questions or concerns around it.
If we do that, don't we replace uniforms every 5 years? So are we gonna have a $25,000 hit every 5 years?
That's a very good question. We potentially could. However, I'm gonna ask Steve to plan out further to see what that cycle looks like. We're gonna have to redo the whole cycle anyways to see how it plays out. And a lot of the teams have alternate uniforms, not just home and away. So I know the hockey team has an alternate, so we could maybe do it in stages as well, so it's not such a big hit every year.
Okay.
Good question. Thanks, Joe.
And Patrick, is that 25,000 in off-cycle replacements, or would some of those replacements have been in this year's cycle?
Yes, we took out the ones that would have been replaced this year automatically to get to the 25.
Okay. And then what does the timing look like? Are you looking to order now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. So do it.
Thanks.
And they're just gonna say North Haven, right?
Yes, they're gonna.
And then we don't need to replace them again once we come up with a new name. They can just say North
They
Haven.
can just stay until they're cycled out,
Great.
and then they can, if they choose to include the new name, then they can.
As they have been, well, lately now.
Right, they've been
had
becoming
no
North Haven anyway.
Emblem
Yeah.
on them or never had the word Indian on it.
And Lenny and the rest of the board, in that same vein, Steve, Mr. Blumenthal did send out a very nice email to all the SCC schools, asking them to refer to us as North Haven this year and not as North Haven Indians in their programs and their announcements. So all the schools in our conference are now aware that we are North Haven for the time being. And the last item is, in speaking with Anita, we wanted to address the need for potentially a larger space for our future board meetings. We saw last meeting, even tonight as well. Our room is a little small here. It's very nice and convenient. It's great, but due to the public nature of our meetings, we might need a bigger space. And brainstorming this out and speaking to Anita as well, I think the best place would be the high school auditorium. The space would never be an issue again. We tried it in the middle school library, and the echoes there were just a nightmare. It was a pretty decent space, but no one could hear each other, and it was just not a great venue for a meeting. But I do think that my recommendation would be for the high school auditorium, unless someone has another good space.
Planning and zoning uses the community room in the library, and those meetings can get a fair amount of people, and that's worked out for planning and zoning. But I'm not opposed to the high school. I just wonder how everything would work in there.
We'd have to sit on the stage, which I don't like.
Mhm.
I like being here, but we'll take a look
Yeah, I'll
at
take
the
a good look, yeah.
library. Okay.
And they have a projector. I've been there. They have a projector and everything.
I believe so.
I always wheel one over, but
I think so.
Okay.
I think
No, Kelly from NHTV, before she left, she used to say all the time, we should look into that for our meetings.
the community room.
And it's
Yeah.
still close to here for you guys.
Yeah, okay, we'll look into
Thanks,
that
Joe.
and I'll let you know.
Thanks, sir.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. I'm sure you have a longer list. Melinda?
Okay, I'll try to be a little quicker. I just want to highlight some of our summer programs. Through the tireless work of many and some real creative uses of grant funding, the district was able to run the most comprehensive summer programs we have ever even thought about having. Our middle school was really turned into a full school this summer with our extended year programs in there and a learning academy and a skills academy. Jody Wilcox served as the director of our skills academy and Mary Lynn Tantorski oversaw the learning academy. We also had enrichment opportunities and high school credit redemption programs. We held the summer skills academy for our students in kindergarten through grade 8. And this was more focused on intervention and kind of filling some gaps from learning loss and giving kids an advantage to be ready for the next year. And that focused on math and literacy. we had a middle school component to that was subject specific, again, focusing on either math or language arts priority standards, and students got to choose which one was most appropriate for them. That in that program, we served 105 elementary students and 16 middle school students. Concurrently, we ran with that a K-5 summer learning academy and a middle high enrichment program. And those were a little bit different. We focused a little bit more on grade level and beyond standards and skills, again, focusing on math and language arts. During the month of July, over 100 students attended our K-5 enrichment component side. And students were able to do some projects, have a lot of hands-on experiences. And at the same time, we offered enrichment programs for middle and high school students who were interested. One of them was a STEM program called Mission to Mars, which was taught by one of our high school teachers, Melissa Wong. She created that for students. And 16 of our middle high students chose to attend that. And then we had another enrichment opportunity, which was humanities-based, and it was our Modern World, designed by Drew Patola, who's currently one of our middle school teachers. And 10 students enrolled in this course, and they had an opportunity to explore a topic of choice and do a project as a culminating activity. And one of the really interesting things kids did as they exited the program, they said that they had never had the opportunity to present their learning in such a format, and it helped their learning skills and confidence all while having fun. So I think that really says it all for a middle high program that it was of choice to go. Given all of that, we also did offer some online elementary math and language arts components for students at the elementary level, and if families wanted to access it, they could. And then we had a lot of students attend various credit redemption courses at the high school level. So we had English, math, some science programs, and then we differentiated for some students who were coming back in after being home for a long period of time, and kind of just created some real independent program paths for them so that they could make sure that they're with their classes and got the credits. So I can't thank all the people who taught in these programs, who coordinated these programs, right down to SROs, nurses. It was really all hands on deck, and it was wonderful.
And Melinda, can I just add one thing to that?
Yes.
Like, people are talking about how awesome it was.
Yes.
I've heard great, and usually I don't know. People are more prone to come and approach you about the negative, right?
That's right.
But for this one, people have just said phenomenal. It's been a great resource. I know we've taken advantage of the online piece of it ourselves, and we've had friends who've just been very thankful that it was here this year. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And we moved from our spring program, which was really wonderful, to this, and then we've got grant monies that will continue to design these creative programs moving forward. We're going to watch and look at student data and see where needs and interests are. So we're designing things that kids are really wanting to participate in and that are making a difference. So thank you.
Just for the board, Melinda will never say it, but she grew this from the ground up, and she'll give credit to everybody else, but it's really her brainchild, and she got this in motion, so I just want to say
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you. Director of Student Services, Jen?
So I'd like to share the Connecticut State Department of Education developed a partnership with a public consulting group to develop and implement CT Sense, which is going to be the new statewide platform that's the new data management system for students who have an IEP. So next July we'll transition to this new platform. The new platform is free of charge for North Haven and any district in Connecticut, so the money that we allocate for, you currently use Frontline or IEP Direct, will be able to be used in different ways to support students. So starting next July, there will be this new platform for staff and parents to use. Some of the highlights is that it's going to support a new IEP document that's of high quality and compliance. It'll be able to store all the data for CDAC, evaluation timelines, early child outcomes, and then there'll be actually a parent portal, which we don't have currently, which I think is really nice. Some of the modules and functions, it'll have the IEP, it will have 504 accommodations, documenting for our Medicaid billing. So when we have students have related services, sometimes parents sign off and say that the district can receive funds for the related services that we actually receive back and use it to support our students who receive OT or speech or PT. It'll track progress monitoring and student progress, student special ed excess cost tracking, all the statewide assessments, and again, the parent portal, which I think is crucial. So staff will be trained. The training starts this January, and we are going to use train the trainer model. So I'm in the process of figuring out, who will be trained, and then we'll develop it into the schools. And the training will be for developing a compliant and high quality IEP, and then the user proficiency of the system. Parent training will be provided next August, so I will share that out as time goes on. And the focus of the training will be orientation to the new IEP, because the setup I feel is more friendly for everybody. There's it kind of goes in more chronological order. So if your child has present levels of performance for strengths in areas of need in language arts, then the goals and objectives are right there. It's not like 5 pages behind. So I think it goes more sequential. And then the service grid is definitely laid out different, so you can know exactly where your child receives services in what area. So I will do a training on that for parents in August. And then as I continue to kind of go through the process and get more information from the state as they share it with me, I'll share it out at the board meetings. And then I have a letter that I will share with all families and staff. I'm trying to figure out later this month or early September. I know with a lot of the principals sends a lot of stuff out to families, so I don't want to bombard families, but so by mid-September the letter will be shared.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I have one if that's okay. Just if families would like additional training just to like up their level of comfort with it, because I know that this is something there's a lot of sensitivity about, will that be available as well? Okay, thank you, Jen.
You're welcome. And I'll think about, after I do the initial one, maybe, some night workshops or maybe early morning, we could have small groups and I could share it with them and just kind of go more in detail.
It's great that it's a free resource for us, and it seems like you think it's a better value, even if we did have to pay for it. But like, is your professional opinion that this is like a better product?
I do like it because I like the rollout of the IEP, but I also like how all the data will be stored in one spot, because right now, we work on so many different websites, and now everything will be in one site. But I do like that parent portal because parents will be able to access the IEP. They haven't talked about if the 504 is going to be part of it, because like Frontline does IEP and 504 together. So I don't know if 504 is still going to be on that Frontline piece. I'm hoping not, and it just becomes one. And I know, I think there's a piece of it where all evaluations will be uploaded. So if as a parent you want to see the evaluation, it will be right there for you to look at instead of saying, oh, can I have a hard copy? Staff will upload it and you can, just look at it. If you're in a meeting, everyone can say, can you refer to this page and review it together.
That's awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jen. Howard?
Okay. Just a couple items. The first one is I just want to update you for my June report. We did end the year with a surplus. However, it wasn't the $1,005,000. It was $1,007,000, $355.08. And so I just want to make sure that you understood too that we took the million of that dollars and we put it into the reserves to fund the medical capital projects and then to create the new SPED reserve, which I'll talk about in a little while. One other operational item I like to discuss is, I don't know how familiar you are with pay dates. This year is a little bit of a different pay date because bi-weekly pay dates, if you're are generally 26 times a year. This year there's 27 pay dates. This caused a small issue with our unions because we chose to go 27 so that they didn't miss a paycheck. And they don't work any more hours, there's just an extra pay date there. And what it actually does is because we pay in advance, there's 3 ways you can get paid. Not to get too detailed about this, but you can get paid in advance, you can get paid current, or you can get paid in arrears. We pay in advance, but what happens with this extra pay date is it moves it to pay current. But it pays you still the same amount of hours, just in an extra pay date. So what we did is we took their total hours because we know what they're gonna work and we know what the rate they're gonna work, so we know what their annual salary is. We divided it by 27. Technically that's not, but that keeps the bi-weekly pays going, but it gets them off their hourly rate because now it's slightly less. So they took exception to that. We discussed it with both unions. It's the support union and it's also the custodians union. The support union has agreed to 27 pay dates because it makes them whole throughout the entire year and they're paid in advance anyways. The custodian union we're still talking with to come out with the outcome that works best for everyone involved there. So I'll keep you up to date on that as we go through that, but I just want to make you aware that that is out there with the unions. Reserve accounts. Medical, we were able to fund the medical reserve, and once the town combines that with the dental reserves, because they're combining those two, I believe I told you that in the earlier report, we're combining those two accounts into one. We will have 1.9 million of reserve for the medical, and we will have $100,000 for dental, which meets the midpoint, 100% of the midpoint for both of those actuarial balances that we were required to have. For special education, we were able to fund the reserve with $350,000, which will be utilized for any sped expenses that can exceed our budgeted amount and are not covered by the excess cost grant from the state. And I just want to update you on one project that we're working on that has potential for the ILS and TLS rooms at Monowese School. We're looking at different types of furniture than your standard metal desks and chairs, because generally speaking, the children who are in those rooms don't really interact well with those type of that type of furniture. So we're trying to find ways. We've found a company. The name is Norva Nivel. This is their. I'll give you this catalog if you'd like to look at it. It has all kinds of specialized furniture for special ed needs and for children that have tactile and different types of needs than a standard education student. So we're looking at that as a project that will continue to update that as we get more into that. You'll see the way I did it for the library, which I included in there, you'll have diagrams like that to show you what the rooms are going to look like before we actually go forward with the capital projects. We were able to fund that reserve with an additional $350,000, bringing the balance to $640,000. We intend to utilize the funds in the following manner. First one is because of the large cost of the elementary fire alarm upgrade that is required by the fire department and the fire marshal. That costs us $388,000 for all 4 schools to be upgraded. We are utilizing capital funds first, but they will be reimbursed by ESSER 3 once we get those funds in. So that'll go right back into the capital fund. Green Acres Playground, which includes the fencing, that's $120,000. The Montoise safety fencing, we had a special ed child who ran out of school, I believe, and the fencing wasn't there, so we're putting fencing in so that they won't be able to get to the road. The Clintonville sign, I don't know how many of you have seen Clintonville, but it says Clintonville cool. It doesn't say school, so we're actually replacing the sign. School is cool, but it's okay. It's replacing the sign. So we're replacing the sign there. That's $2,500. And then the last project I want to talk about is the library project, which I included the pictures of. Again, that's working with this company, and it's a different way of looking at that space. Right now, we can actually triple capacity and utilization for people sitting in that space and utilizing that space by removing the shelving that's there for the books that are. I believe the average age was 1989 is the books that are in there. The new media specialists there, library media specialists, did an average age. So we're not getting rid of the books. They're going to be stacked differently along the walls, but we're going to create a different space in there. And so I just wanted to open up if you had any questions about that project. And I just want to make you aware of that project because we actually put it out to bid. We got only the one bid in from W.B. Mason, who's utilizing this furniture, and it was for $114,000. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and see if there was any discussion you wanted to have about that.
I think for the public, what school was that?
This is the high school's library.
High school.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think something to verify that.
No question.
So is there potential to use the space if you change the layout?
So interesting enough, that's the way this furniture is designed. It's designed, they actually told us that when we do this design, if we come back in a year, we don't want to see it looking like this because the furniture is designed to be utilized in any infinite amount of ways. You can put it together, take it apart, move it around, and do all kinds of things. So it's meant to do that. It's meant to create different spaces, different seating, different learning spaces. And it's meant to do that because people learn differently. And so there's different, and some will learn visually, some will learn sitting, some will learn standing, some will learn in a small setting, some want to be in an open space. So that's what this furniture is designed to do. It's designed to be used in any number of ways. And so that's what we're trying. We're trying to make it dynamic, right? So that it's a dynamic space that can be utilized.
But there's a potential for students to use the library up to the capacity that you're trying to. So there's a need. From the student's perspective, there is a need. So students come in and they're demanding that sort of
students aren't really utilizing the space because it's not really conducive to that at this point in time. So it's just wasted space, and it's a very large space to be wasted. And so this is a way of taking that space, redesigning it, and recreating it so that it can be utilized. And it's actually, if you had a chance to
Yeah, I'm taking,
take a look at the picture, there's actually one end where there's actually a space for a teacher to hold a class and to come in and actually have their class sit around, and it's got the big screen TV, and it's just already there, so that's not even a cost that's involved, it's already there. But this is creating a space that's unique, and then there's other spaces that the way they can move it around. And so we believe that it's going to be a space that gets utilized more for group projects, for just going and studying and things like that.
Okay. I just want to make sure that it's a space that students will actually
Gravitate.
Yeah, because students, the way they even do group projects, they may just sit in the hall, sit down among each other and start working on projects and things like that without actually, it's kind of like the concept of physical books versus electronic books, that nobody actually looks at that anymore, so.
So we involved Carol Ardito, who's heads up, she's the coordinator for that area. We've involved Dr. Dalai, he was involved in this. Jen Kuzniewski, our director of IT, she was involved in this. We involved the library media specialist, that person was involved in it. And it was getting all of their ideas and getting it in so that we had a good idea of what the space should be. And then the designer for this is actually a former educator. So she actually left education to get into this with her husband. They're out of Australia. They moved to Texas, and he's a furniture designer, and that's what he does. So it's there's a lot of educational experience that's going into this and how the space is being designed and reconfigured.
Okay, thanks, Howard.
Thanks, Howard.
I have sort of an off-the-wall question on that. It looks beautiful, but will there be the capability to charge computers, like built into the floor, built into the desks?
So right now it is built into the floor.
Okay.
They're actually covered up right now with metal plates. So we're working on getting so that they can actually plug into that.
Thanks.
Just to continue on, ESSER 2, we are looking to utilize, so as Melinda was talking about, we use the program, we utilize the funds there for the summer programs. We didn't utilize all of those funds. So
Even under budget.
we were under budget, so we're gonna have extra funds there. So that's something that we're gonna be looking at, how we're gonna utilize those funds and rewrite the application so that we can continue to utilize those funds over the 2 years that we're allowed to do that. ESSER 3, the application went in this evening, actually just before this meeting it went in, so that we've applied for that. That's the $2,041,000 that we're getting there. Again, the biggest piece of that, or one of the biggest pieces of that is the $388,000 for the fire alarms, but another big piece is additional teachers. We have 5 elementary school teachers in that, and they're covered for approximately 2 years. So that's expanding the classrooms there. We also have a bunch of other programs in there. I can go over the details with you if you'd like to. And the last one, that's it. Any questions?
I didn't even get it in your last statement, that you're talking
So-
about the 2 million.
So ESSER 2 was $900,000, 900 and change. ESSER 3 is the $2,041,000, and the application went in today.
Okay, so these are grants, this
These
is
are
a
grants
grant
from the
that
state
we have to apply
that we
for.
would have to apply for, and
Right.
it's utilized for learning loss, social, emotional, curriculum, and there's also safety of the buildings, and then there's also technology. Those are basically the 4 areas that you can utilize the funds for.
Okay, great, thanks, Howard.
And ESSER 3 has facilities now too, right? Is that the-
Safe facilities, yes, right, safe facilities as well.
Okay, anyone have any more questions for Howard? Okay, we're gonna move on to the public comment section.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Not about, I was looking at this, the flow chart. So, what if a kid is sick, right, they have a cold, but they have no known exposure? Then are all the kids gonna have to get tested before they're allowed to return to school if they're homesick?
No. Because if the student doesn't come back COVID positive, and the other ones who are considered close contacts will not be.
No, I mean like,
If your child.
my kid's homesick
Yeah.
with no known COVID exposure, they're just sick.
So we don't know necessarily,
We haven't
we haven't gotten an answer. I know Jen K has reached out to QVHC to find out answers regarding that.
Okay,
We're not sure on that.
okay, I know, I think a lot of parents are wondering that.
Yep.
Okay.
We're hoping it's not the case, that everyone
Like
has.
a doctor can just,
Right.
or something.
But unfortunately, I think some of this, Jim made a great flow chart, but there are gonna be some of these,
Yeah.
one-offs that we're gonna have to
Yeah,
address.
no, as I was reading it, I was like, what if?
Yeah.
What if? So that's the one what if that I think a lot of people have a question about.
I think we'll continue to have.
Yeah, what is, I know.
And then when we find out things keep changing. Okay, we're gonna go to the public comment section of our meeting. I saw many of you already wrote down your names. But when you get up to speak, I'll call on you. Just please state your name and address. Who would like to speak first? Good evening.
My name is Jennifer Vanaker, lifelong resident of North Haven. I would like to cite an excerpt from a poem to begin with. Tell me something what you would think would happen if every time they kill a black boy, then we kill a cop. Every time they kill a black man, then we kill a cop. You think the accident rate would lower subsequently? June 2019, Connecticut PA 19-12 was passed unanimously to develop the innocuously titled African American Latino or Latina course of studies at the high school level. Just recently, the curriculum was posted online, which appears contrarian to the core values of being a productive member of American society. Some of these curriculum resources seem to go far beyond what would be considered appropriate. While I would encourage and invite an African and Latino or Latina studies elective course, the title of said course does not match the curriculum material, which is hyper-focused on an almost Orwellian version of diversity over merit, equity over equality, and all of the undertones of critical race theory. Yes, parents, it is here. Which leads to my question. Who hired Imari Oguasa as the new diversity and inclusion coach?
Point of order, Madam Chair. According to our bylaws, we are not able to take public comment on specific employees of the district.
Okay, so let's scratch his name, right? Just pretend I didn't say it. Who is it that hired someone who was arrested on a felony charge of inciting a riot in Florida? This charge was dropped. However, he came back to North Haven, was involved with the BLM protests in town, calling our North Haven police officers pigs, blocking roads and disrupting traffic. How is this acceptable? How is he a fair and balanced diversity and inclusion coach, especially with this curriculum
Point
with
of
our
order,
children?
Madam Chair. Like, we can't just attack.
We need to stop. You mentioned a class. Can you tell me what curriculum class you were talking about?
I already stated it, the African American Latino course of studies, which
Excuse me, I'm not familiar with all of our classes, and please don't be rude. I'm asking this question.
I'm not being rude.
Is that a class that we have right now that says African and Latino studies?
It was just legislation that was passed.
Okay.
We've not, it's not enacted yet though.
So we don't have that in our
And it's an
school.
elective.
Correct.
Excuse me?
We do not have can somebody please explain who knows this?
Sure, we do not have it yet. It is legislatively dictated to us for future to offer as an elective. We actually have a meeting with our social studies.
Yes, absolutely. This year, it's not required. Next year, it is required.
Elective, correct.
As an elective. So I'll say one last thing and I won't waste your time anymore. We hope this collection of prompts and poems will add to the conversation around these issues and provide further avenues of expression for people navigating the violence that Black, Brown, Indigenous people face in America, abroad, at the hands of police brutality, military, and other terrorist organizations. Let me guess, conservatives? Or would that be PragerU and Turning Point USA, which I recall being called known extremist and terrorist organizations by someone on this board? They are conservative organizations that I belong to, and I take great offense to what you said. You know who you are. In closing, I come from a family of Army, Navy, firefighters, and police. And with that comes a passionate love, pride, and sense of duty to my country. It is now my duty to fight this at the town and state level. I will be alerting every parent in this town and in this state of this racist curriculum. If any parent would like the 300-page curriculum, as well as a breakdown of what thus far has been found, contact me, please. Thank you for your time. God help and God bless this country.
Ms. Bannifer, I just want to point out one thing. we don't have curriculum here.
I can send it to you. If you can give me your email, I can
Oh,
send it
yeah,
to you.
absolutely.
I'd love to send it to you.
So you're saying the curriculum is what we have in our school system now, it's on our class offerings?
It may or may not
It's a
be.
state.
It's a state mandate, we're not offering that.
You will be offering it by
We
next
have
year.
to offer.
We have to, but,
But we're
okay.
not correct.
But I just want to be clear, as of today, the North Haven Public Schools is not offering
No one is.
that. Thank you.
It will be,
All right.
just like to alert the parents.
And I'd be happy to give you my email.
I would love it, thank you. I
Okay.
can send you everything that I've only gone through a quarter of the 300 pages. It's
Okay.
disturbing.
Okay. And then I would also like to suggest, as on the state level, that you speak to our senators
Oh, I have.
and to our state rep.
Thank you. It's all,
Okay, thank
it's all
you.
going.
Okay, anyone else would like to speak? Hi.
My name is Gina Grasso. Me and my husband live at 55 Spring Road with parents of a soon-to-be fifth grader who has an ME, thankfully. But I'm here to speak on behalf of all the other parents that mask wearing should be a choice, not a mandate. I don't know if any of you know, but the CDC does not follow science. There are no peer-reviewed studies that show masks work. Not one. The size of the particle of the virus is way too small. It says so on many boxes of paper masks. Doesn't stop a virus. I understand that there's people that are afraid, and that's fine. They should have the choice for their kid to wear a mask to school. Also, winter of 2019-2020, the school my son was at, there were actual whole wings that were absent due to sick students and teachers. But there was no suggestions of masks then. I believe this is a grotesque overreach. The psychological damage is teaching kids the air that we breathe is toxic, along with everyone around them being sick. Special needs kids with medical exemptions who are taught by teachers with masks can't watch the mouth to help with enunciation of words or can't see expressions. That's like 101 when it comes to special needs kids who are being included into regular ed. Social development is very important. There's harm in breathing your own CO2, your own spit, your own sweat. And what does it do to a child's immune system? COVID poses no risk to children at all. We've known this since April 2020. The flu is more dangerous to kids than COVID, and that's a fact. But there was no numbers of the flu last year, which will change come December of this year because the CDC and the FDA have said that the PCR test is faulty, produces many false positives, and therefore they're going to be introducing a new test that differentiates the difference between COVID and the flu. So I'm sure we'll see numbers for flu come back up. Forcing healthy kids to wear masks is called child abuse. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is the disease. And you're all forcing kids to participate in this charade to satisfy your delusional psychotic hypochondria. It's utterly insane to me. Politicizing a virus similar to the flu in an election year with a survival rate of 99.8% depending on age bracket. And I'll just end it there.
I just want to reiterate, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, when this is not a decision of the Board of Education. It's not a vote that we make. It was a mandate that was given to us, all school systems across the state by the governor, that we have to have teachers and students have masks on through September 30th.
Did they provide, do you ask for studies to be produced that show that they work? Do you also ask to have, is it okay for parents to, can you mandate that it's a parent's choice?
I'll let you go on,
At this
but
point, go ahead, Sam.
I think where we need to be going to is we need to be going to our state. One moment, please. So it is not, we can't sit here as a board and say all those in favor of no longer wearing masks, raise their hand.
But the governor put it down to the towns to make the choice.
No, he only did that.
After the schools.
Not for the education. He only did that for town business, for the town building, which is now, this building now, we have a mask mandate. And he allowed it for stores and businesses to make their own decision. But the one about the education comes directly from the governor stating that we have to have masks till September 30th. It's 13A.
Executive Order 13.
Executive Order 13A.
You don't think like there's power in numbers that you can get together, or you all agree with that?
I think you have a board, here with different things, but you're looking at it, it's all across the state right now. We have people all over saying unmask our children. You have boards that have the same type of conversation. Are masks needed or masks are not needed? Right. But it's something that we don't have that control. It came down from our governor. And what Mr. Stirk had said earlier was our legal attorney put down a couple of things. We just got this tonight, and this went out to, I just want you to know, all the people who are covered under these attorneys who handle boards of education, that it says, at present, wearing a facial covering, i.e. mask, in the school building is a legal requirement, not a recommendation that school board members and other school officials can choose whether to follow. School officials who ignore or even override this mandate have, excuse me, Ms. Vanicler?
Yes.
I was trying to read something to Ms. Grasso that
You keep saying law though. A mandate is not a law.
That's right. This mandate has no legal defense, school officials who ignore or even override this mandate have no legal defense, and they may face personal liability as a result. However, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. The current mask mandate is a binding legal requirement, and it was done by the governor on July 13th, 2021. We've been following that since then. We've had other boards of education, other towns are going through the same thing. My thought is go to the governor. There have been some rallies in Hartford about unmasking our students. I just came back from 2 other towns from travel, and it's all in those other states, and those other states also. I'd be happy to talk with you more about it, but what we know, but that's where it comes from.
It just sounds like you're passing the buck.
We have no choice, Mrs.
I think you can stand up, can't you, and use your voice if you think that it's wrong, knowing that a mandate is not law?
I'm not an attorney, but this came from our attorney's office.
I hear you, I know that. Okay. But you also know that you like non-medical places can't hand out masks either, right? A school, you can't hand out masks. You need to be a part of a medical field, medical distribution center, a hospital. Right. You can't do that. But you don't know that either, do you?
At this point, it's a legal requirement, and we're not able to go against it at this point.
Anyone else wish to speak? That I actually, can I have your name?
Too, but I have a couple questions based on what
Can I have your name, please, ma'am?
Lori. I live on MacArthur Road.
Your last name, Lori?
My name is Lori. I live on MacArthur Road.
We need your last name, ma'am.
Reynolds.
Okay. Hi, Lori. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you face to face.
My question is this: you're saying it's. I wonder if you guys are going to re-vote on the mask mandate after September 30th. That's one question.
We never voted. So why do you say a re-vote?
That piece of paper from the lawyer is up until September 30th. I'm asking if the board's going to re-vote on the mask mandate after September 30th.
We do anticipate that the governor will come out with some further guidance. He has said once or twice that he would come out with further guidance prior to the start of the school year. I haven't heard further than that. So
okay. My understanding also there's 13 other towns in Connecticut that have already said it doesn't matter what the governor says, there's no mask mandate. I mean, it's 13 of them.
Do you, okay.
We always use our legal counsel for advice, and when our legal counsel has shared this with us just 3 o'clock today regarding how to approach this, when they tell the Board of Education that is a legal requirement, that's kind of where we have to rest our heads on that.
And my third question is this, is there gonna be a vaccine site or whatever at the high school that you just said? And if so, is there gonna be a parental permission going required for every student that gets a vaccine?
Is there a
I'm
us
asking if
giving vaccines
You
to
see,
students?
I saw a thing on, for vaccine for the students.
We will not be providing at the high school vaccines for students.
Okay, so there's no.
Yeah, I'm sorry if there was a
vaccine site or anything like that, or?
No.
No, I'm sorry if there was any confusion to that. No, there will be no
Okay.
vaccines given to high school students.
Can I say my?
Yeah, that's where it says vaccine,
Vaccines will provide North Haven Public
the best
School the best
chance
chance
to keep it 100%, but it doesn't say anything about having a site.
Okay.
And
That's
as I was reading it, it's something that the state Department of Health as well as the state epidemiologists continue to share with us during our weekly meetings with them.
Can I make my statement now? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. For a long time, the government's been saying 1 + 1 is 3. Having a detailed nature, I started researching what I saw on TV. Just seemed off. In my research, this is what I found. From February 1st, 2020 till 8/5/2021, 2,144 people died from COVID in New Haven County. New Haven County has 27 towns and has a population of 854,000. North Haven had 53 people that passed away from COVID in a year and a half. And the youngest person of the individual was 64 years old. All the COVID patients had what they called underlying conditions. It still leaves a recovery of 99%. Also, no one was diagnosed or died from influenza A or B in the entire state of Connecticut. The CDC and FDA has recently said that they are replacing the PCR test in December because the test can't decipher from what is flu, what is COVID, and what is the common cold, causing false positive results. If that is true, how are they testing for this Delta variant? The Delta variant takes 2 weeks to test, and it's very expensive to use. The labs and hospitals in Connecticut don't even carry them. The labs and hospitals use the PCR test. So what do we use until December? Makes me think. The newest variant, Lambda, has been diagnosed in San Diego, California. And everyone knows why the Lambda variant landed in California. It's because of the Newsom recall election next month. In recent months, the well-being of children has came under severe pressure from all sides. According to a University of Stanford report, there was an increasing number of children with complaints when wearing masks. The report involved a total of 25,000 students, and of the 25,000 students, 68% suffered physical, emotional, and mental issues and complaints. This study, based on 4.5 hours a day where their child was wearing a mask, 53% had increased headaches, 50% had difficulty concentrating, 37% had drowsiness and fatigue, 42% had irritability, 30% had shortness of breath, 26% experienced dizziness, 15% experienced accelerated heart rate and respiration, tightness in chest, weakness, short-term unconsciousness. A third of all the students suffered from sleeping problems. They also saw an increase in depression. I know that the board policy is the safety and well-being of the child, but isn't the mask wearing mandate causing more harm than good? It is going to take a child to pass out in class to prove these masks are not in the best interest of the child. Please leave it up to the parent whether their child wears a mask or not. Let the people have the choice, not the government. Thank you.
Amen.
I really do, Lori, think you spoke very well. You did your research that you need to go to the governor's office and speak with them.
I will, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak, ma'am?
My name is Lisa Dabkowski. I live on Sugar Hill Road. I'd like to offer my comment in regards to North Haven students and being outside during the school day. While last year was an unusual and unprecedented year, I thought perhaps the silver lining of the circumstances would be an increased time students would spend outside, with the well-known knowledge, even back then, that regarding COVID, being outside was safer. It was safer to be outside than inside. However, as the school year went on, mask breaks went away, and the only time my child was outside was during their scheduled recess time. Rarely did they go outside beyond that. Last year, my child was in their classroom at their desk from 8:30 a.m. to 3. They stayed there for most of their specials, for lunch and for recess when the weather wasn't good. Also note that my child is 6 and was in kindergarten last year. Even I get more outside time at my 40-hour-a-week full-time job in my office. Now, please don't take my comments as criticism of teachers or the administration. Last year was unprecedented, and everyone worked tirelessly to open our schools and keep our children safe. And I'm extremely grateful for that, and my child is safe. But as we go into our third year, school year of this situation, we know even more, and we can continue to learn from our experiences and the data available and revise protocols. It is well documented in the research literature that time in nature provides so many positive outcomes for people, especially children. Research shows that being outside supports a child's creativity, reduces anxiety, and it provides crucial sensory input needed for developing minds. But most importantly, being outside is the safest place to be right now. And I'm not talking about increasing recess or having a walk around school, but actually using the outdoors as the classroom space. I'm very happy to see that the district's draft of the Safe Return to In-Person Instruction and Continuity of Services Plan includes a response that outdoor spaces will be used. However, I believe there needs to be formal, practical, and achievable protocols put into place to ensure that this can happen so that teachers are supported in taking their classes outside. Books, notebooks, pencils can all be brought outside. Each of our schools sit on acres and acres of beautiful land, and that can support distancing between cohorts and classrooms and teams. All students should be able to enjoy their lunch outside under a tent, not just high school and middle school students, including elementary school students. I'm also proposing that increased time outside extends beyond just the warmer months. A sunny 50-degree day when you're wearing a jacket feels great. Students can keep rain boots, winter boots, extra hats and gloves at school. North Haven can use some of the funding and the grants that we have to buy weather-appropriate clothing for children who don't have it. My suggestions are not practical, are not radical, they're not politically aligned, and they don't go against state mandates. North Haven can do this. Like all of you, I care deeply about our children's safety and development. I would be happy to volunteer my time for any outdoor, to support any outdoor efforts, and I know many parents who would as well. So in summary, I respectfully ask the board to formally adopt protocols at all grade levels to ensure that our students have increased time outside each day. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments tonight? I think this gentleman here.
I'm going to be very quick.
Go ahead.
Quick like a bunny. Hi, my name's Brian Riley. I live on 1037 Harper Turnpike, and I've been here for about 7 years now, unless my wife tells me otherwise. I had a really, I had a bunch of stuff for you actually, and that was up until the point where you guys started to point out 13A and all that good stuff. And 13A, of course, being the mandate, that's what we're all stuck with. And we're stuck with that until September, to the best of my knowledge.
At this time.
At this time.
At this time, right. So there is a possibility that after September, we may not be stuck with those same mandates, okay? They could be passed on to recommendations, I don't know. What I do know is that the stuff that I brought to the table for tonight for you guys to look at isn't my research. It's peer-reviewed research on masking, on viruses, on how vaccines work, how the mRNA vaccine works as compared to the non-mRNA-based vaccines, and what they do with kids, and how kids' own immune systems actually handle these viruses as compared to adults, because it's a different thing. They don't, they're not really the vector that we thought they were last year when it comes to infecting adults. They can, It's just a lot less likely than going from adult to adult. But this brought up a couple of questions when you guys were kind of going around and talking about what the new rules were going to be for 2021. So I did have some, and I was hoping you could help me out with it. One of the things was the 3-foot rule. Where does this come from?
State Department of Health.
Okay,
And this Connecticut State Department of Education.
do they have any peer-reviewed study on that?
You'll have to ask them.
So, throwing on. That's fine, that's fine. And you know what, that onus is on the state, it's not on you guys. But do understand that, like everybody else here, you can hear the frustration.
Very much.
I also had another question for you, and this was, again, with what you guys were talking about earlier today. You were talking about new hires for teachers, you were talking about you wanted to do a more inclusive thing, which to my understanding means you're just, you want to get more races involved in the hiring, is that right?
The minority educator recruitment policy?
Yeah, is that what you're referring to? Yeah. Okay.
It is a state mandate as well.
Okay, and I had a suggestion, because I knew you had a suggestion, and I thought maybe it wouldn't really work out, where it might be easier for you. When it comes to the hiring, you were saying you wanted to match a certain percentage of what the students might be. Maybe it might be easier to match the number of educators that are in the state of Connecticut, and whatever that ratio or percentage might be. Because that way you're not going to be reaching, you don't even necessarily have to reach out of state. Whereas if you try to match numbers with the students, it's not going to happen.
I think that's a good point. My point was just like to have some kind of metric barometer, but like, that's a good point.
Well, I think the metric for that is by going with what the state has to offer, you actually can still put your best foot forward and say, hey, look, I want merit-based, I want a great teacher, and I'm also more likely to get that teacher whether or not, you know, they're of any given race or anything like that, because they're gonna hit that percentage. And because it's reality, it's, okay, there's 10% of this, I'm gonna get 10% of those teachers if I can, you know, if we can pay them and all that good stuff. But I just thought that might be a thing. So outside of that, there was only one more thing I had for you, and that was all that information that I had to go dig up on the Googles. If you guys would like to take a look at some of this stuff and read the studies, there's no sense in me regurgitating it to you. I am not a doctor. But the guy who found the research is, and I found it fascinating. And I mean, some of it, word salad, don't get me wrong, but definitely, if you like, I have it on a Google Drive. You guys can actually download all the stuff. It's on PDF directly. I've got it in a zip format, and I've got a link to the video for the Dr. Dan Stock, I believe it was, that was actually over at the Mount Vernon, Indiana Board of Ed, referring to all this information. So if you like that, I mean, I'd love to grab an email from you, send it over to you, take a look at it, because I think it's important. The only reason why I say this is I think it's important because beyond September, you might have a choice. And I think we really need to look at as much information as we possibly can, not just what's getting passed down to the state, okay? The state has made, dare I say it, errors before. I mean, if we want to refer to like how the DMV was upgraded to the new system. So honestly, if you'd like that.
Sure. Before the end of the evening, we'll give you Patrick's email, Mr. Sturk's, and which is just Sturk.Patrick@northaven.org, right?
It's gonna be so much better when you write it down.
Yeah.
If you want, and there are also all of our email addresses are on the district website as well. But I can also give you a card and you'll have that too.
Fantastic. I mean, I could send it to you tonight if you'd like.
Perfect. Yeah.
We appreciate the work that you did, the research that, we appreciate the research.
No problem.
There's a woman in the back who wanted to speak.
Hi, Chris O'Brien, I'm on Whitney Ridge Terrace. Just going to the Executive Order 13A. I understand it's, you know, the executive orders are mandates and they have been upheld in court, so I'm not questioning that. However, the governor's powers do expire the end of September. The legislature's already extended them, And they may extend them again, however, I think there's reluctance to do that. So when September 30th comes, and if the executive powers aren't extended and these mandates have expired, is there a plan in place going forward after September 30th in terms of envisioning no mask? Obviously, there are kids getting vaccinated, some cannot. The science is still out on many things. So is there going to be a plan, or is there a plan right now that's being contemplated where kids can go maskless after these mandates are up?
There's not a plan right now. As we all know, this virus changes from day to day and week to week. 3 weeks ago, we thought having the option of wearing masks could potentially be an option for parents, be an option for districts. We left on a Friday, came back Monday, and things are very different in the state and what was reported out to us from the DPH and the Department of Education. But I do think a month plus in COVID life is like an eternity, and things do change very often. If we start, I'm still waiting, honestly, to see what the governor says and see how the DPH handles and the CSD handles this in the next couple of weeks, and to determine whether we get an inkling if it's going to September 30th comes and it's on districts, or if things will be extended from that point. We tend to get an idea around that, and then we can begin our planning and really start consulting with our local health department in the state as well to see how they expect us to handle that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments? I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Jody Policio. I live on Maple Avenue. I think all of us are pretty well aware that you are not in control right now of the mask mandate. I think the overarching point and concern was we want to be heard, and this is kind of ground zero to do that for us. We're aware of rallies. We're all working together to plan, to go to these events, and we know who our representatives are, and we know the gross incompetence of our leadership at the state level, and we're fighting that. But I just really, it's not that we think that you have all the control. We want you to hear us, so if the time comes where decisions are in your hands, you've heard our voices, you'll hear them again. I have as many statistics and studies and research and reports as the rest of these folks, and I can certainly send you what I've got. It boggles the mind upon seeing this to think that anyone would put a child in a mask for longer than a heartbeat, to see and to know, and as educators, to see firsthand and to understand what it takes to teach a child and to then compromise and put that child in a mask. It's heartbreaking and it boggles the mind. And I just wanted to say I'm in full support of Mask Our Kids North Haven and Connecticut. And I'm very hopeful for September 30th. It's my birthday, so I'm hoping for a nice birthday present, actually. But in the meantime, we will do what we can, and we will hope for the best, and we will fight like hell. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments tonight?
Actually, I do want to talk. If that's okay. Hi, Christy Huntley. I'm on Hartford Turnpike. Just a couple of comments, just things that have been brought up. Really quickly I thought there were wonderful ideas shared for the committee you want to convene for the mascot.
Oh, thank you.
Really, really awesome things there. I just wanted to make one suggestion, as I've been paying attention a lot of the public comment, but also the people in town. I think I would want to strongly encourage there not be an over-focus on athletics in that discussion, because I think the community coming together on the topic is really important. And if you are convening some of the groups, I hear you that if you can go for one of the biggest groups, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we shouldn't have a direct line for all of the organizations. North Haven Soccer Club's a very strong organization that has a lot of ties, so I wouldn't want them to necessarily have to feed through another organization. So maybe some kind of setup that would allow them to have a direct conduit to that group that you're talking about.
that was one quick thing. On the minority searches for instructors, there's actually a lot of best practice out there for diversifying the pipeline. Our neighbors in Massachusetts have actually been very specific on ways we can do that. Just for context of my comments, I am Associate Dean of School of Education at American International College in Springfield, where we train teachers. So that is actually something we're mandated to, that for you to have teachers to hire, we must train them and graduate them. So that's something I'd be happy to talk about. We actually have to incorporate a lot into our curriculum. So again, why reinvent the wheel if best practices out there? And really in the end, it's more about the search rather than anything about not hiring the most qualified individual. Of course, it's about hiring the most qualified individual, but people were talking about advertisement, how you let it be known out there, but it's also making sure that you're looking at who the qualified individuals are. So newly licensed teachers are actually, locate them in a database. So you can see where they are, had previous teaching experience, whether they have experience in different populations, and all of that's public information. So there's a lot of great ideas there. Last thing that I wanted to say, just because I'd be remiss if I did not say it, as I mentioned, what I do have a PhD, that is a research degree, and so I just really want to clarify something. The statement, I did research, I'm hearing it so much lately, and I get it, and it's wonderful. I think critical thinking is something that I want everybody to do a little bit more. Not lead with emotion, but lead with the information that you have. But I also want to be really careful to say that when we're talking about we did our literature, I teach the class where they actually have to conduct a literature review, come up with everything that there is. It's an exhaustive search. And I say to my students, right now, give me something that you want me to support, and I'll find a peer-reviewed article right now online, and you can find it. You can find a peer-reviewed journal. You could find 5, you could find 10. We call it the preponderance of evidence. That means you've done an exhaustive search and you've looked at who published it. A peer-reviewed journal means the person putting it forward, it went against one of their peers. So if I'm the head of a religious organization, it goes to one of my peer groups there to then publish that study. So it's so much more than saying I've done research. It is exhaustive. It takes people years of their lives to do this on one statement for their dissertation to get these degrees. So I hear about masks, I read them all, and I was trained to break down medical research and break down scientific studies. We're not there yet. These things don't exist yet because it takes time. Longitudinal studies are the preferred method. I can go on and on because it takes me 16 weeks to scratch the surface of this with my college-age students and also adult learners, because many of them come back for a master's degree or doctoral degree. These are very challenging things, and it's why we go out and get training to do it. Going onto Google, even if it's a peer-reviewed journal, it is not the end-all be-all. So it was very important to me. I know that these are publicly shared things, and from my view, if I did not say something, when all is said and done with all of this, I'll at least know I'm on the right side of history, because science is science is science, and without it, we're lost. We're teaching science in our curriculum starting when the kids are very little. And saying it's science doesn't make it science. I teach about it, and that's the most that I can say, is we really need to be careful when we say we do research. It's not 2 years of your life. It's a life dedication to some specific topic that you are trained on. I don't speak outside of my area of expertise, and I would hope that other people wouldn't speak outside of their expertise. That was all, and I just want to say thank you to everything that all of you have done. I talk to a lot of you and often, and this is a thankless job that all of you, I say job, you're not paid. This is a thankless committee at many times, but I thank you sincerely for our kids and for me living in the town. Whatever happens come September 30th, I have faith in the group that has been doing this for this long to make the decision that's best for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment before we adjourn? Okay, ma'am. This will be our last speaker.
Thank you. My name is Casey Maranuzzi. I'm at 29 Turner Drive. To be frank, I came here tonight to listen. I didn't anticipate speaking at all, so I had nothing prepared until I started to listen, and I quickly made some notes. But I've since changed my mind even on that. I hear that we are mandated with masks through September 30th. As a mom of a child who is too young to get vaccinated, and as a high school teacher in another district, I am relieved by that mask mandate. I will be very honest, and I sense that I'm in the minority here, which is why I decided to stand up tonight and speak unprepared. So I look forward to an opportunity for more discussion as we get closer to September 30th. I think it's really vital that we do that.
Can I ask you why you're relieved? Just because I'm really truly curious from a teacher's perspective. If children
Can I,
admitted,
excuse me,
Well, first of all, I didn't, like I said, I didn't come here tonight with a million articles off of Google, so I'm not gonna get into.
I'm just curious why a teacher
Can I
is so concerned.
I will tell you.
excuse me, can you have the conversation outside this meeting?
Yeah, well, I
Finish your
don't know if I really
statement,
am
but
ready for that tonight.
the woman in the back and yourself, if you can have that
That's okay.
conversation outside this meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I am relieved because last year was, as we all know, difficult in a million different ways. I have been a teacher for 19 years. It was the hardest teaching year of my career. I'm relieved because my whole household had COVID this winter. I have no idea how we got it. We were extremely careful. And to that point too, I didn't expect to share this either, but I'm going to on behalf of anyone else who's struggling with long COVID symptoms. I urge my neighbors to not use the survival rate as something to minimize anything, to be honest. I was out of breath for 20 minutes after walking up the stairs tonight. I'm still struggling with several symptoms of my fairly mild case of COVID. I could list them. I mean, I can't carry a laundry basket from my bedroom to my laundry room without taking a break. So I really, in the most heartfelt way, want to urge my neighbors and folks to not use the survival rate as a point of argument, because that's not all there is to worry about. Death is not the only thing to worry about when it comes to this virus. But I will share super briefly why I'm relieved, because coming back is stressful enough right now. Last year was incredibly difficult, as we all know. I know it as a parent, I know it as a high school teacher. And I said in June, as many of us did, we looked forward, we looked ahead to September. And I remember very clearly saying to my colleagues at lunch one day, gosh, I hope everything is normal in September, right? There was light at the end of the tunnel. The vaccine was here. Like, we really thought we were going to be in a better place. And I said to them, I have to say, if masks, and this was way before this unmask our kids or anything became such a big point of discussion, if masks end up being the only thing that we have to worry about, especially as teachers, then I'll be thrilled. Because everything about the way we had to teach last year was different. And everything about the way we had to teach last year was harder. And kids were not served like they should have been. So, I know people disagree, but the question was asked, that's my answer. So I also just want to thank you for the work that you've done. People were very public with their criticisms of how last year went. It was a no-win situation. So I thank Mr. Stirk, I thank the board, I thank anyone who fought, parents, anyone who kind of stood up and did whatever they could to make it, the teachers, the admin. Nobody wants it again, believe me, no one. The bus drivers, food service, nobody wants to be remote again. So let's continue to have that goal in mind of in-person learning all year. And whatever it takes to get there, whatever it takes to get to in-person learning all year, I am in favor of, and I support the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. May I have a motion to adjourn the August 16th, 2021 special meeting of the Board of Ed? So moved. Second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.